They were the wildest, sleaziest, most hardcore glam metal band around in the 1980s. No one partied like Motley Crue, no one was as shameless and unhinged. They heavily influenced the sound of 80s metal and especially glam metal like no other band, and their influence can still be felt even today within modern rock.
World Tour 85, August 7th at Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Get your leather together.
Motley Crue can easily be credited with starting the entire LA Sunset Strip scene. They weren't the only band around back then, nor the only influential one. But Motley Crue was the first band to use makeup and combine this glam aesthetic with the raw and heavy sound that was much closer to the type of heavy metal that was becoming increasingly popular in the 80s. They were also strongly influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal, which can be especially heard on the Too Fast for Love album. The way Motley used this aesthetic was completely different from any other band that came before them, and also from bands that would follow. Yes, they did use makeup, tons of hairspray, and wore clothes that could be seen as feminine and highly glamorized. However, at least early on, Motley wasn't just another generic glam band. They had a much darker sound and look that was much closer to traditional heavy metal. They used a lot of satanic or demonic imagery, their outfits were also darker, almost emo-like. In fact, the whole emo movement was influenced by Motley Crue and basically a sort of reincarnation of that whole sound and style.
Rock and roll, an unhealthy influence? That's not the way Debbie McIntosh and friends see it. When Debbie won the grand prize in MTV's Halloween Horror Show, we flew her and 25 chums to Chicago. We dressed her up. We made her up. Then we set her up, transportation and all, at the Limelight Club for a private party with autograph and Motley Crue! Got a lovely cake. The next night, it was on to the Rosemont Horizon to see the Crue concert from the first row, and then back home to Mount Healthy, Ohio, with enough memories to provide an eternity, a lifetime of nightmares, dreams. Yes, Debbie is a happy woman today, but those creatures, what are they trying to tell us? People really win on MTV.
Right, guys?
You could be next.
People tend to forget that Motley Crue had some pretty heavy albums that are honestly pure heavy metal. Too Fast for Love and especially Shout at the Devil are raw, heavy, and powerful.
I've discovered a new way to test if record will be hit or miss. I play record for typical American parent. If they like it, it's a miss. If they hate it, it's a hit. Now I play new electro record. Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. Looks like we got big hit on our hands.
Get Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. We know it's a hit. We've got technology on our side.
Now see the cool
They symbolize and define everything that the early LA scene stood for without the overly cartoony and commercialized sound that later bands such as Poison would introduce. Motley Crue had zero issues writing songs that weren't radio friendly even once they became popular and successful. The entire Shout at the Devil album actually has a much darker tone, even outright creepy at times. In fact, their music was constantly under fire, either by the PMRC or by religious figures due to their often occult or satanic lyrics.
Many things.
Oh, yes, it has. Among them, corrupting the nation's youth, turning them onto drugs, the practice of premarital sex.
What's great is it's not like he tries. He is what you see, and that's what I love about Vince.
You say our love is like dynamite. Why don't you just set me free?
However, if you listen to Shout at the Devil, for example, you'll realize that none of that is written in a way that would actually hint at the band being demonic or calling for demon worship. It's all made to either offend these types of people that sadly still exist, or because it simply sounds cool on paper when being sung. You can observe a similar trend in a lot of heavy metal at the time.
The reason why we put it right out here and we said, look at this. There's a pentagram. But why don't you read? When we're telling these religious fanatics, read this. Shout at the devil. It doesn't say shout with the devil. It's at the devil. And that's why we put the pentagram right on the front.
And a lot of things, if you stand in the middle of it, the evil can't get into you. Right. So it's actually a good symbol.
And what happens in society, says Nicky Sixx of Motley Crue, is what his band sings about. There is no hidden message that would cause someone to want to die.
JJ with the music news for you. Motley Crue has just entered the top 10 for the first time with their latest album, Theater of Pain. And the first single off of that album was the Crue's interpretation of Brownsville Station's Smokin' in the Boys' Room.
There were a lot of heavy metal bands in the 80s. The LA scene especially seemed to be producing hundreds of them every minute. But Motley were the original savages. They kick-started the whole scene and they had by far the biggest influence and success. That's not to say that other bands didn't contribute a lot. Red, for example, was extremely prominent too. But no other LA band had the longevity and staying power of Motley Crue.
Friday night, Motley Crue may have a new, clean, sober image, but they still rock the charts with Dr. Feelgood on Night Track's Power Hits. Then on Nightflix, Boy Meets Girl, Boy Falls for Girl, Boy's Computer Tries to Stop It, Electric Dreams. It all begins at 11:20 Eastern on TBS Friday night.
One reason for that aren't just the kick-ass albums they produced in the 80s, which are miles better than anything they made later on. I mean, seriously, it's insane to me just how good their 80s run was and how full of garbage and crap everything starting with the 90s ended up. It's like Motley's entire creative force was tied to that decade, and once it ended, they were drained of the ability to make good music. Either way, it wasn't only their amazing albums that made them notorious in the heavy metal world and even even on the news. They were also known for throwing the wildest parties, sleeping with the biggest number of women, and snoring Pablo Escobar's entire cocaine supply. These guys were absolutely unhinged. Just like their music, they had no limits, no morals, and were living life to the fullest.
What's your most terrifying experience?
Well, check this. This is one time I had to fucking piss so fucking bad. I was driving my Corvette with my buddy Spidey, my drum roadie. Going down the freeway, I had to piss. You know when you're going, ow, 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 ow. So I pull over to the side of the freeway. I forget to put the car in park. I jump out of the car so fast that it's still in drive. My fucking car, my Corvette, runs over me. My own car ran over me. I call my car pristine now after that incident. Isn't that cool? I swear it's true. No one believes me. Look at, he doesn't believe me.
Because Motley Crue were so over the top and without control, their music felt much more real. They weren't just singing about imagery topics or pulling things out of their asses. They were actually living it. When a song talked about drug abuse, depression, or serial womanizing, you knew these guys were writing from the heart and expressing their personal experiences.
They have been both revered and reviled, accused of everything from fostering violence to lowering sex to its sleaziest level. With only 3 albums and a handful of singles, Motley Crue has the potential of attracting more young listeners than any other rock band in the world.
It's just something I love. Hard rock.
But sex and violence?
What's wrong with that? You're only a kid once.
Takes you away, you know, if you're depressed or bored or something, you put on Motley Crue and you're having fun again.
Some of them will do almost anything to meet the band. During a contest given by this radio station, where a backstage pass was the grand prize, a 13-year-old girl wrote in and said, "I'd do it with the Crue till black and blue." A 17-year-old girl wrote, "I'd give them every piece of action they wanted." And this from a 14-year-old boy, "I'd give them my mother."